Well, thanks very much. I'm delighted to be here and to see old friends again, many of whom have traveled a ways. Thank you for coming. Why write a book? The answer is because there's a point you wish to make. In this case, the point is that China is rising more rapidly and in different ways than most people think. And while we focus on the economic and the military dimensions of this challenge, a separate, quite serious threat is found in a different dimension. It is ideational. There has emerged a battle of ideas about governance. The Chinese have developed a fast growth, stable, market authoritarian model that is admired in the world beyond the West, and particularly among third world nations. It promises regime leaders governance without the contentious legislatures or challenging media, and it promises the people employment, housing, and a better future. Crucially, it does not promise an open public square or the right of assembly, speech, belief, or association. The public is asked to respect the authorities and stay out of politics. Thus, we have today a deeply rooted clash between systems based upon Enlightenment and Confucian values. The matter becomes more interesting in light of the non-Western views of China's example. The words envy and admiration come to mind. With China's rise, a non-Western country now approaches the pinnacle of global power. Even more, the Bank of China, now 6 times the size of the World Bank, is financing infrastructure and energy development across Africa and Latin America, including to outliers and pariah states. Here, China, in effect, provides a path around the West. In the process, China has made the West, its standards, and its institutions less relevant. For 30 years, the Chinese have been our economic partners, but they've also been our political rivals. Successful market reforms indicate the Communist Party is not about to crumble, and it is certainly not melting into democracy. What's more, rising China, having survived communism's global demise, has evinced a deliberate self-awareness. China will not become a member of the club. China cannot be housebroken. It marches to its own drummer. The market will not lead to democracy in China. It has chosen a different path and is quite pleased to have done so. It has neither confronted the US-led system nor confronted its worldview in the 2 decades since the Soviet collapse. What do these trends mean for the idea of the West? What does this mean in the longer term for the primacy, if not the viability, of our values, tolerance, transparency, reason? And what can we expect changes in the values that inform global bodies such as the UN or perhaps the World Court? Can we expect changes in those values in the coming decade? In 1938, another very uncertain time, a diplomat savant said, "Don't ask only how Bolshevism has changed Russia, but ask how Russia has changed Bolshevism." And so we consider how China has changed communism. Before addressing these issues, allow me to say a few brief words about the military and the economic dimensions of the China challenge. The debate in Washington and Europe on China's rise focuses on 2 things. First, it asks if China principally represents a military challenge, and then it asks if economic trends, debt, trade balance, are more important. Some believe these issues are manageable. Others see them as unacceptable threats to global and regional security. So, what to make of China today? First, a word on the military. Pentagon estimates that China's total military-related spending in 2008 was approximately $150 billion, giving China the 2nd largest defense budget in the world. In 2009, Chinese President and party leader Hu Jintao said China's military priorities were electronic and cyber warfare capacity in the coming decade, and that includes subsurface warfare, space-based lasers, and systems that integrate command, control, and communications. In the PLA Air Force, there has been an effective integration of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and it's seen in China's new airborne early warning and control systems. They employ radar technology that is one full generation ahead of the U.S. E-3C AWACS and E-2C Hawkeye. Beijing claims that 4 of these systems are now operational. On the ground, the PLA is now introducing tactical unmanned aerial vehicles to support their ground forces, although these are relatively unsophisticated. At sea, U.S. analysts believe China may soon challenge the 7th Fleet in the Western Pacific and the 5th Fleet in the Indian Ocean, and indeed there's been a bit of paint rubbed off the bows of warships in both places. China also seeks a zone of control off its east coast to include Taiwan, the Paracels, and the Spratlys, and in the Indian Ocean it's constructing naval facilities, its so-called string of pearls, from the Straits of Hormuz to the Malaccan and Sumbac Straits in the east. Clearly, for Beijing, military modernization is a serious business. Trends paint a grim picture in the Pacific and beyond, and they lead some people to believe in Washington that a confrontation is a possibility. Yet, Chinese military development might accurately be described as a just-in-case capacity to puncture American battle space. We're told that China's hopes to leapfrog American military hardware with the development of high-tech close-in weapons that target American vulnerabilities, namely our reliance on communications and intelligence, that is their priority. Secretary of Defense Gates put China's military in perspective when he said these developments give cause for concern, but not much more than that. Now, briefly, the economic challenge. Aside from the large U.S. debt held by Beijing, there's concern in Washington about the negative trade balance, the artificially low value of the yuan, cyber theft, dumping, and the effects of Chinese direct investment in the U.S. economy. That said, China's position as an American creditor is not simple. The large amount of credit Beijing has extended to Washington, in fact, also presents a serious liability for China. A measure of stability is found in what has become a marriage of liabilities, in which China has as much interest in keeping the U.S. economy and the U.S. dollar stable as Americans themselves. The Chinese government buys American debt for the simple reason that this sustains the macroeconomic engine that Beijing relies upon. Chinese investment in American bonds keeps American interest rates low, making credit easier to obtain and generating a pool of capital for Americans to continue buying consumer products, that is, Chinese consumer products. And in this sense, American consumers are the lifeblood of the Chinese economy. Further, Beijing buys American assets to maintain the value of the dollar, which in turn protects the value of its Treasury bond investments. Today, roughly $798 billion of China's foreign exchange portfolio is held in liquid U.S. dollar assets, part of which are Treasury bonds. The Chinese government allowed the dollar to fall significantly against the yuan. That would wipe out billions of dollars of value in its coffers. Does Beijing have leverage in this domain? Yes, but Washington has powerful countervailing leverage. The U.S. could limit or threaten to limit U.S. direct investment in China, or apply high tariffs that would hit China's export sector very hard, casting millions out of work and injecting the prospect of chaos in the cities. And on that point, while Treasury has delayed its April 15th report on Chinese currency manipulation, make no mistake, China does manipulate its currency. It effectively exports unemployment and prevents others around the world from climbing out of the recession as they otherwise might.